And this is just one of those wonderful moments at the beginning of a year that allows me to appreciate this place so much more. As Robert Sawyer and I were talking about the patch ceremony, we were discussing the symmetry of this with the other ceremonies that you're familiar with, the pin ceremony at the start of a boy's journey, the patch ceremony here at the beginning of high school, and the ring ceremony nearing the end of the high school years. And I think that these moments mark important transitions in life for not only you boys, but also your entire families. And as I've thought about this over the course of the past night, I was hearing echoes of many of the things we've been talking about at the beginning of this year. And one of those is that by putting on a patch here, you are acknowledging that you are joining something that's much greater than yourself. And you're acknowledging that you have entered into a new portion of your time here and portion of your life by starting high school. And it can be easy to just throw the patch on and have it on your blazer, continue on your day, and not pay much attention to it. But I want to consider just for a few minutes what it might mean to put on this patch and to think about it day in and day out. There are a lot of hopes that we have as we begin something new. And the start of high school is certainly the start of something new. You likely feel the difference here already between your 9th grade year and your junior school years. And your parents are starting to recognize that you are not the little boys that they loved and loved and loved on for years, that you are transforming into a young man who, before too long, is going to head out into the world and leave home. And there's a lot of thoughts that go through our minds about that process. But there's a difference between hope and commitment. So I want you to think about what commitments you make as a student here at MBA as you put on this patch. One is the commitment to each other. By all wearing this patch, it's an outward symbol of the fact that you're in this together, that this is a collective effort as well as an individual effort. So make a commitment to care for one another, to be kind to one another, and to help each other, as we've talked about, become the very best versions of yourselves. And that means that you should look to set aside individual differences that you may have, and to consider what it means to all be in this together. Set a tone in your classroom and on your teams and at your lunch table where it's okay to fail, where it's okay to try something because you know that the guys around you are going to be there to help you up and to urge you to keep going and to keep trying. Set a tone collectively where you know that you can be your true, real, authentic self. You're discovering what that is right now, and there can be a tendency to behave or to act in a way that you think others want. Who are you really becoming? And are you allowing those around you and urging those around you to become themselves as well? The other commitment, of course, that we've talked about is to being sure that all that you do and all that you say is right and it's true. So you've heard me quote William DeWitt Hyde, that in everything you do, you choose the hard right over the easy wrong. It sounds simple, and yet it's really hard to do in practice. The other commitment I want you to consider is the commitment to your family. One thing that is going to happen over the next few years is that your relationship with your family is going to change. It's supposed to, because you're going to be living on your own. But there's something that I think we confuse at times, and that's this: I have to be independent. I have to be on my own. I want to get away from my family. And this is a truth that I think you will realize more and more as you get older, but I want to give you a preview of it. You don't ever want to be all alone. Independence is not actually the goal. Being self-confident, able to face challenges independently on your own, being able to go into novel situations and know that you have the tools to succeed, yes, but you will always need and want those who love you around you. Your parents will not know exactly how to be the best for you in the years ahead. There are going to be confusing moments where you're going to feel like they're treating you like a small child and you don't want that anymore, or that they're getting into your business too much. You can name it. You've already seen previews of it. So what does it mean to have a commitment to your family during this time? I would urge you to openly talk as well as you can about what you need. Here's an example. You go home and you've had a challenging day. You had an issue with one of the tests that you took. And you say, I just don't get this. One of your parents calls up to the teacher, and next thing you know, the teacher's pulling you aside and talking to you, and you feel like, wait a minute. I just announced I had a problem at home, and the next thing you know, my teacher's talking to me. Did my parents call? Did I even want them to do that? What does that mean? Do they not think I can solve this issue? In these moments, share with your family the challenges that you're going through. Be open. And then give them room to ask you the question, how can I help? How can I help? It might be rehearsing a conversation, talking you through next steps. It might be that you need their help at that moment as well. But take the time to know that your parents are listening to you really closely, and they love you very much, and they want to help, but they're not always exactly sure how in that moment. The final commitment that I would reiterate for you is one of patience. Patience with yourself, and that things are hard, that takes a lot of effort every day in all of your venues, and sometimes we don't grow as quickly as we want. So be patient with yourself and know that as long as you stick with it, that growth is going to come. And don't drop your head too early. And if you feel like you just can't do it in that moment, look to all the other guys around you who are wearing patches and ask for help. Look to your teachers and your family around you and ask for help. That's a strength. So we're so glad that you're here this morning to mark this really important moment of transition in your life, and to be here not only as a faculty, but as a family. Would like at this point to invite our senior speaker to the podium, Owen Willers. Welcome, Owen.
Good morning. My name is Owen Willers, and I'm a senior. My younger brother, Charlie, is here among your freshman class today. Reflecting on my 6 years at MBA, and more specifically, as I enter my 4th year of high school, I believe that there are 2 pieces of advice that I would like to pass on to your class that will help you take full advantage of all that MBA has to offer. Get out of your comfort zone and maintain discipline. I know that many of you have been at MBA since 7th grade. You've most likely found your friend groups over the past 2 years or kept with friends from elementary school. That's what I did, at least. I found my group of friends in junior school, and I entered high school wanting to maintain these friendships. However, I've come to realize that it is important to branch out of your current friend groups. Interacting with people whom you would not normally talk with is necessary for growth. Getting out of your comfort zone will broaden your perspective on life and introduce you to many of your peers that you normally would not get to know. If there is something or anything you are interested in, now is the time to explore. Throughout my years of high school, I've made it my goal to try new things and meet new people through the many opportunities that this school has provided. My freshman year, during the activity fair, I was walking around the different club tables. I was hesitant to commit to a club that I knew none of my friends were doing. Despite this, I took a chance and signed up for that psychology club with Mr. Lawrence. This seemingly small act of getting out of my comfort zone has changed my high school experience. As I started participating more in the psychology club, I developed a passion for the psychology of the human brain, and now I intend to major in psychology in college. Even though I knew none of my friends were signing up for this club with me as a ninth grader, this step out of my comfort zone has enriched my high school experience and opened up a door to future career options. Another more recent example of how trying something new paid off is when I went on the South Africa service trip this past summer. In the weeks before we left for South Africa, I started to get anxious because none of my close friends were going on the trip with me, and I would be out of the country for over 2 weeks with this new group of people. Once I arrived in South Africa and started to interact with the other students on this trip with me, I began to really enjoy working with them. With the other MBA students, we interacted with big groups of South African kids. We and the South African kids were from various backgrounds. We often spoke different languages, came from different families, and played different sports. Despite these differences, we were able to interact and have fun with these kids across the world. As a result of my going on this service trip, I not only got a chance to help communities in South Africa, but I also made several new good friends whom I never would have thought that I would become friends with before going on this trip. When you get to be a senior, I hope that you will be able to look back at your high school years and know that you have gotten to know every person in your class. You will be surprised how many interesting people are around you every day. Another piece of advice that I wanted to impart to you all is the significance of discipline. All of you know that life here at MBA gets tough, and sometimes you have a hard time finding motivation to continue giving 100% effort every day. Speaking from experience, I've been in that situation many times over the past 3 years where I'm tempted to slack off for just a little bit. It is very easy to fall in the trap of slacking off, procrastinating, and not giving your classes your full effort. In these moments when you want to give up, it is important to stay disciplined. Make a calendar, hold yourself accountable, be organized. There will be times in the next 4 years when you don't have the motivation to stay on top of your work. But in these moments, you have to rely on your discipline. For me, discipline means grinding out all of your homework assignments the night before instead of scrambling to finish them the next day, the period before they're due. Discipline means starting to decide to study a week before your test instead of cramming the night before. Discipline means studying hard for your last exam, even though summer break is just around the corner. Plan accordingly in order to avoid last-minute time crunches. If you can make a concerted effort to make these disciplined decisions, I promise you these choices will pay off for you. Thank you for allowing me to share some pieces of advice with you. I know it sounds cliche, but time really does fly. I remember being here this morning 3 years ago today for the patch ceremony. If you make an intentional effort to try new things, meet new people, and maintain discipline, you have an amazing next 4 years of high school. Thank you.
Thank you, Owen, for sharing those pieces of advice. And now we'll hear from Mr. Moxley.
Good morning. I'm Haywood Moxley. I've been here for 37 years, and I want to thank Mr. Sawyer and Dr. Daughtry for finally tapping me to have a chance to speak this morning. All of you ninth graders here this morning, you're already aware of much of what our high school will offer you. You know that your teachers will prepare you for college by developing academic skills. On the field, your coaches will teach the value of teamwork. You know that you'll be pushed to work hard, and from this experience will come a class camaraderie that will last a lifetime. You've heard all this before. It's on every brochure that we print, and it should be. I would never diminish the values of these skills and these achievements acquired through your hard work. But perhaps you are like all three of my sons, MBA graduates, who asked me when they started high school, "Is this it, Dad? Is there more to this time of life than just working to achieve excellence?" And by that, they meant working hard for high grades, or sweating through cross country in the summer, or rehearsing half the summer for the fall musical. Like so many questions my sons have asked me, this one was hard to answer. Is this it? Well, this morning, I'd like to touch on some virtues that, despite your busy schedule, I hope you'll nurture in the next 4 years, talents and traits that won't win you an award or trophy. I know many students, including my own, many students, including my own sons and myself, who didn't win many awards. Were they disappointed? Sure they were. But I recall what Father Fitzpatrick, my high school theater teacher, told us when we thought we'd been cheated when we'd lost the state one-act competition. He said to us, "All anybody needs to know about prizes is that Mozart never won one." Though we can't all be number one, we can find endeavors and experiences that bring meaning to our lives. The first step I suggest to you is to find a mentor. Unknowingly, for about 35 years or so, I overlooked this step until one day I found the man who showed me, through his actions, what leadership and humility have in common, for you cannot have one without the other. My revelation that I needed a mentor came over a parking space. I had been at MBA for 10 years, and when I saw younger teachers getting prime parking spaces and me still huffing across campus to Wallace Hall, I grudgingly began coveting a better parking space. One dreary winter's day, a colleague told me she was retiring. After congratulating her on a great career and wishing her the best, I began calculating how to get her parking space. After working late that afternoon, I went to see if Mr. Tillman, the director of the high school, was in his office. Among 100 other things, Mr. Tillman assigned campus parking. Finding his office closed, I headed to my car when, in the dark and in the driving rain, I spotted a lone figure ambling to his car, the last vehicle in the last row of the last student lot, the absolute worst parking space on campus. From his distinctive gait, I could tell it was Mr. Tillman. There he was, the man who could assign himself the best space on campus and who, without telling anyone, had given himself the worst. I felt about that big. In the grand scheme of the cosmos, this was a tiny lesson, but without breaking a sweat, I realized two key things. One, it's easy to fall prey to petty longings like a parking space. And two, in the orbit of my world, I wanted to become a teacher and leader like Mr. Tillman. Men, I hope that you won't wait as long as I did to become open enough in your lives to find a mentor. Along with the mentor, I think you should find something you love. It could be music, drama, art, poetry, or yes, car mechanics. And be fearless to cultivate that interest, something that can become a lifelong pastime. I know a lot of men who don't have one, men who without their work simply have nothing to do. I was halfway through college before I finally got the nerve to pick up a guitar. My best friend in high school was a great musician, and consequently, I was too self-conscious to play an instrument around him. But with his help in college, though, I finally started playing the guitar 40 years ago, and personally speaking, it's been one of the best things I've done in my life. It's hard to develop talents such as playing an instrument or writing poetry or songs while you're so busy at MBA, but I hope you'll find a balance in your time here to develop some passion outside of schoolwork. Every year, I teach a student who could ace every test, but sometimes makes a B or even a C because he's fallen in love with the cello, the guitar, the violin, and yes, magic. Mr. Russ's son, Jameson, was an accomplished magician in the 10th grade. It took hours of practice, but I could see it was very fulfilling for him. We can't all be professional musicians or magicians, but at a young age, it is wise to begin developing your passions, even if it sometimes means making a B or a C, but never a D on an English test. Doing your best means doing your best to make the most of your life. Along with finding a mentor and finding a passion, finally, I hope you will all come to figure out the way that you learn things, your own method special to yourself. For example, do you need to hear a story while reading it? If so, read Hamlet while watching the movie. Are you experimenting with ways to brainstorm to form your arguments? I had a dorm mate who covered the walls of our room with butcher paper, not supermodel posters, and kept track of his random thoughts by writing on the walls. He was brilliant. From his musings, he created essays for history and literature class. From random observations came poems and stories. He encouraged me to figure out how to get the most out of my imagination. Are you actively engaging in the act of learning and not simply waiting for your teachers to tell you how you should think? My wife, Margaret Wrinkle, is a New York Times columnist and is about to publish her third book next month. By the way, it will make a great holiday gift. And in one chapter, she writes about how when deadlines loom, she jumpstarts her imagination. She says, "People often ask how long it takes me to write an essay, and I wish I knew how to answer. When I start, I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know what wandering route I must take to get there. The whole thing is an exercise in faith. It begins with an image, a feeling, a vague sense of why something matters to me. It never begins with a plan. I just start writing and trust the words to keep coming. And if they don't come, I go for a walk. Always I find more answers in a forest than I find in my own hot attic of a mind. I hope that you too can find your way to open your mind to the forests of your imagination." I'll conclude today with the final lines of one of my favorite poems by Mary Oliver, "The Summer Day." It's a poem, I think, that's about an older person, a mentor perhaps, speaking to a young friend. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Good luck, men, patching together the next 4 years of your precious lives. Thank you.
Dr. Daughtry, Owen, and Mr. Moxley, thank you for those thoughtful words. Gentlemen, in just a moment, you are going to receive your MBA patch. You're invited to wear this patch with your blazer at all MBA coat and tie events. Please especially hang on to your patch because you will also need it for your graduation in just a few years in May of 2027. Mr. Markham will stand you up by rows and he'll dismiss you from the center aisle. After the student in front of you receives your patch, you'll proceed to the table to receive yours. Be sure you pause so we can get a nice picture, and then proceed down the outside aisle and back to your seat. While you're waiting, we also invite you to read the letter that is in your chair. So if the first row will please stand and wait for Mr. Markham to dismiss you. Congratulations, gentlemen. In just a moment, we will dismiss you. When we do, please be sure to clean up your trash and take your letter and your patch with you. Parents will be welcome to come to the floor to take pictures. Please just be sure that you arrive to advisory by 8:10. But before I go, I want to give you a quick charge myself. In May of 1962, in what would become the last speech of his public life, Army General Douglas MacArthur spoke to the cadets at West Point. As you may know, West Point cadets operate under the slogan of duty, honor, country. In his speech, which has become a famous piece of American rhetoric, MacArthur refers to the cadets at West Point who wear gray dress uniforms as a long gray line. I want you to listen to how he refers to the different American wars as he challenges the cadets to uphold West Point's tradition. He said, "The long gray line has never failed us. Were you to do so, a million ghosts in olive drab, in brown khaki, in blue and gray would rise from their white crosses thundering these magic words, duty, honor, country." Gentlemen, I believe a similar phenomenon exists here at MBA. You are a part of a long red line. This year is the 157th year at Montgomery Bell Academy. You will be the 160th graduating class at MBA. You too have the obligation of upholding our institution's standards of gentleman, scholar, athlete. You attend an outstanding school, but it's not a great school because of the impressive college admissions statistics or the trophies in the trophy case, or even the founding date. It's not a great school because of the beautiful buildings, or the names on the outside of those buildings, or the quotes on the inside of those buildings. It is a great school because the 159 classes before yours have left you a legacy of excellence. The 159 classes before you, all of whom signed the same register that you signed last month, have contributed to the school in academics, athletics, the arts, service, camaraderie, and a myriad of other ways. They have entrusted you to uphold the tradition of the long red line. On behalf of the MBA faculty, staff here, and the alums who are part of the long red line, I charge you to uphold our tradition of gentleman, scholar, athlete. You are up to the task. Good luck, and roll red. You're dismissed.